the Sleepers Podcast, episode 2, week 2 of our little relaunch. This is G, aka Greg Waddell, and with me as always, my good friend Carter Elliott, Michael Carter Jr., the one and only Cat. What's going on?
G, what's going on with you? Happy holidays to you and everyone at the Waddell household, and also happy holidays to everybody listening out there. All 11 YouTube subscribers, we see you, but anybody listening, happy holidays as well. G, hope you had a good time, enjoy the time with the family, and let's get this episode underway.
Yeah, same to the Elliots and the future Elliots. And if you're looking for more Carter Elliott wearing a bucket hat content, you can find that on said YouTube channel. Subscribe, Sleepers Media. Carter, first week of basketball with the NBA launching last week, and we're kind of in midseason form with college hoops, so there's tons to talk about. I think we want to start with college hoops tonight. We're going to get into Michigan State more in detail. We're going to get into Michigan more in detail tonight. But first, I think we should talk about where we kind of stand across the country. I think we learned some things this week, especially off of that Gonzaga-Virginia game yesterday. And the number one question that I have and that I've heard from a couple other people is this truly a year where this is Gonzaga versus the field?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, G, coming off non-conference play and like going into these games, teams get into conference play finally. I think it's kind of a time where you can really start making lists and kind of separating like the pretenders from the contenders. And it's easy to try to nitpick at Gonzaga. Just them being the number one team, naturally them playing in like, the WCC, and just naturally people want to nitpick at Gonzaga and kind of put their wins to the side. But when you look at it, and when I really look at this team, I would not be surprised to see them go undefeated the rest of the way, to be honest, especially with some weaker teams coming up in their schedule. This team is a well-oiled machine, and they got a lot of game, and they're very well coached. And if I was taking bets on, taking Gonzaga or the field, in another year, I might take the field, but I'm really taking Gonzaga this year, I think, man. I just think they're too high-powered, to be honest. I think they're too good.
Yeah, they definitely passed the eye test as one of the best teams from the last decade. I think they compare in a weird way to the Carl Towns Kentucky team that was undefeated through the regular season. And, it felt like that team had 10 starters. I think this Gonzaga team has 6 legitimate starters that might be the best player on most other teams in the country, even most other high major teams in the country. I've been seeing some concerns on Twitter from people that are just skeptics of Gonzaga that probably don't watch a lot of their games. That's just like, well, they don't play anybody. That's just not true. They have one of the hardest non-conference schedules in the country this year. They passed the Iowa game and the Virginia game with flying colors. The Baylor game got canceled. I don't know if that's going to be rescheduled, but quite honestly, I really want that game to be played, but I honestly kind of don't mind if it doesn't at this point, because I think that could be sort of the big meal at the end of the day that we're saving up for and we're building up to, and it might be a game that comes in the Final Four card.
Yeah, very true, especially because there's a saying, and I might be saying it wrong, but it's hard to beat a team twice. So, it could be a situation where, let's say Gonzaga does lose to Baylor that game. They can look back at that game. They can make adjustments. I mean, when they're meeting for the first time, if it's, let's say it's in the Final Four or the championship game, that's one game, take all. The best team on that day wins. And I'd much rather have it that way than, them playing earlier in the year and then a team capitalizing maybe on some mistakes that they made in the game they lost earlier in the year. So, but Baylor, I think, is the biggest contender to Gonzaga in my eyes, or one of them. I would think the top contender. But this Gonzaga team is just really, really goddamn good.
So I made an enemy of Gonzaga Bulldogs fans on Twitter this week, and I'm no stranger to making enemies on the internet. You know this, Cart. But this time I don't think that I deserve it. I want to run this by you. All I said was that Gonzaga only has 2 top 10 players in the country. Now, those 2 that I was referring to were Jalen Suggs, freshman phenom, in my opinion, the second best freshman in the country right now behind Cade Cunningham, and Drew Timme. I left off Corey Kispert, who is Gonzaga's leading scorer, who, while a super productive player who's had a great start to the season, he's not an NBA talent. Mm-hmm. Well, he probably will play in the NBA, but he's not like a lottery pick type guy. Yeah. I've honestly started to come around a little bit after watching that Gonzaga-Virginia game, and Kispert's been out of his mind. He may deserve legitimate top 10 player in the country, I guess, labeling at this point. But do I really deserve people on my ass for that? I just said they got 2, not 3.
No. You don't deserve that. And I think that just points to how goddamn good Gonzaga is. Like, Kispert is, like, I would say the third. To me, I don't want Gonzaga Nation on my ass too, but I mean, I'm not insulting him by saying I think he's the third best player on that team to me behind Timmy and Suggs. But that's how good that team is. But also shout out Zags Nation because y'all ride for y'all players, because G tweeted it out and like 5 minutes later he had all the WCC on his ass just tweeting him about how he's leaving Kispert out. And Kispert's a good player, but I think you could make an argument he's outside top 10 players in college basketball. I don't think that's out of line.
We have a segment coming up later where hopefully I'll redeem myself for Gonzaga fans with a little Corey Kispert love. But yeah, Carter wanted to push me to tweet that Spokane sucks and really double down on the Gonzaga hatred, but I avoided it. So no enemies here, Gonzaga. I believe in you guys. In fact, they are at the top of my list of teams whose stock went up this last week, which is absurd because they were already the number one team in the country. Everyone knows that. Fans that barely watch the sport know that. Experts know that. Everybody's impressed by this Gonzaga team. But of all teams this past week, I think their stock went the most up. They went into the Virginia pack line defense, who typically wants to hold teams under 60 points. They hold really good teams under 60 points every year. They've been doing it to Duke and North Carolina pretty much every single game for 5-6 years now. And what Gonzaga did was pour 90 plus on them with, I would say, even minimal effort. It just looks so easy out there. And at this point, I'm wondering if you have to just outscore Gonzaga, but there's no team in the country that has the firepower to do that.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's going to take a perfect play, but also a perfectly coached game to beat a Gonzaga team. And, it's kind of discouraging because if I'm, looking at great coaches and great game plans, I think Tony Bennett is one of those great coaches who can do that. I mean, he plays, in a tough ACC conference, typically tough ACC conference, really down this year. But, yeah, you're going to have a perfect game plan to beat this Gonzaga team. And I don't think outscoring them is going to work. They got way too much firepower. So I really don't know what necessarily needs to be done. But, you got to have something ready for them boys.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think like what's going to bring this team back down to earth. And honestly, Kispert just shooting more in line with his career averages versus what he's done through the first month of the season is probably the only thing that's going to change. I mean, Andrew Nembhard started the season coming off the bench. I'm not sure if he still is. But he, to me, is their fourth best player. Joel Ayayi was a guy preseason you and I were both super high on, thought he could potentially be their best player. He's probably their fifth best player right now. Which you just compare that. Like if Joel Ayayi is really Gonzaga's fifth best player, he's as good as most teams' second best player in the top 10.
Right. I think he's we've talked about this before. He's a first round talent to us. And that is, like you said, their fifth best player this year. And then even go down even further, they got glue guys like an Anton Watson, who hasn't even played to a level which I think he can play this year. So even if you say like guys could come back to earth, like a Kispert, I think there's guys on Gonzaga who can play even better and step up if a Kispert falls off or maybe a Timmy or somebody else's stats fall off. They got people behind them who can step up. I mean, you got Nembhard, who was starting at Florida, correct, for a couple years?
Yep. Yeah, he was their best player for 2 years.
And was their best player, and they just got that. They just, what I'm saying? They got a little ace in the hole back there if something goes wrong. That team is crazy.
Right. And I think when comparing them back to that Carl Towns Kentucky team, to me, the biggest issue with that Kentucky team and a lot of John Calipari teams is that guys never settle into a comfortable role because it's so competitive. You're worried about doing the most with your 20 minutes a game. And any given night, you don't know if you're really going to be on the floor in crunch time. Gonzaga doesn't have that problem. They've got their 6 guys. They're all incredible. They have 3 legitimate potential All-Americans. The WCC first team is going to be Gonzaga's entire starting lineup. Yeah. And rightfully so. And they're all getting 30 minutes a game and they're comfortable with it and they know their role and they know who should get shots at what time in the game and they balance it out and it's really impressive.
Yeah, true. It is. And do you know for a fact that all their guys are getting over 30 minutes a game? Like the main guys?
I don't know that, but I think Watson's over 20 and I'm pretty sure all the rest of them are near 30.
Okay, so I mean, even I'm trying to. Here's me trying to nitpick at Gonzaga. Like maybe they run out of fuel, but they got guys that could, back it up. And with these weaker teams, they could rest guys as well. So, I mean, if they stay healthy and stay on the path that they're on, this Gonzaga team is going to be real. They're tough to beat now, but man, they're going to be. They could possibly get even better going, further into the year. So it's scary.
Do they lose a game before March?
I say no.
I say no too. I just don't know who they lose to.
Yeah, and I don't even got to look at the schedule, to be honest. I just say no.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to make this a whole Gonzaga thing, but I mean, I think Kansas is one of the best teams and one of the better teams in the country. And they made mincemeat of Kansas. Kansas kept it close. They brought it back, for a close game. But Kansas is also one of the better defensive teams in the country, and they couldn't stop Gonzaga. And then you have Virginia, who's one of the better defensive teams in the country, and they can't stop Gonzaga. So I don't know. Maybe you just can't stop Gonzaga. So I would say no, they don't lose.
Yeah, and Gonzaga, I think, had a 5-point win against West Virginia. Iowa was a 20-point blowout in the first half before Iowa cut it closer in the second half. So just honestly as impressive as you could be if you're a Gonzaga Bulldogs fan right now. It'll be very interesting. I honestly think if Vegas were to give that out as a bet right now, it would probably be like even money for Gonzaga to win the national championship versus the field, which is crazy.
Nuts.
Now, however, I think that's a little disrespectful to Baylor. And we don't need to get too far into it, but to me, Baylor's done nothing to disprove that they are that caliber of a team.
They just haven't played. They haven't played.
We'll learn more in a couple weeks. But yeah. I have Gonzaga 1A, Baylor 1B right now. You don't like that?
I think Gonzaga. I think Baylor is 2. Like I think Gonzaga is 1. Like 1 by themselves. They know 1A, 1B. I think that Baylor is 2. But I need to see a little bit more. I mean, they haven't played in a while, man.
Yeah, true. All right, let's move on to the one other team I have in my stock up category from this week, the Northwestern Wildcats, the infamous Boo Buoy, #nightclub boo. Once again, hitting step back shots in crunch time of a Big Ten game. Northwestern just went 3-0 in a 7-day span. They are undefeated in Big Ten play. And it might be time to stop laughing when I do my daily picks and I see that Northwestern's a 1-point favorite against decent teams now.
Yeah, you got to they earn the respect. You got to give them their respect. I mean, Boo Buoy's playing out of his mind that he can really, really, really go. And I thought maybe it was just him killing Rocket Watts and Josh Langford because apparently if you're a guard or a point guard, you want to play against Michigan State because you're going to get yours. CC Dimitri Trice, but them boys are playing really, really well, and they're making plays down the stretch. I think one of the main things is when you look at a team like Northwestern or a team that we think less of, you think down the stretch they maybe keep games close, but when it gets in that last under 8 timeout, they'll fall apart coming out of that timeout, or you know what I'm saying, they won't make enough plays down the stretch to get that win. But when you have big time players like Boo Buoy, and they're even getting good play out of young Nance too. So
Miller Kopp, bucket.
Yeah, so they're just making enough plays down the stretch to close out games, and you got to give them credit. They're playing really well. I'm sorry I said that Northwestern stinks. You don't stink.
Yeah, I'm also sorry for saying that you stink. You're fine. I think you're a middle of the pack Big Ten team, which I said this in daily picks. It's a huge accomplishment for the Northwestern basketball program. It really is. I mean, if they're not a cellar dweller, that's something that their fans probably treat like we treat going to a Sweet 16. That's exciting. Yeah. I think they're a for sure tournament team. I think Miller Kopp should be an all Big Ten guy. Like you said, Nance is playing well. Chase Audige to me is a total difference maker for Northwestern that kind of came out of nowhere. I believe he transferred in. I forget where he transferred from actually, but double-digit scorer. They're just more well-balanced than they were previously. I kind of thought going into the year this was just going to be Miller Kopp and nobody else. And I think their talent across the board, at least in the starting lineup, stacks up well with those middle-of-the-pack Big Ten teams. So yeah. I got my eye on you, Northwestern.
Yeah. Actually, I can't take that back. I still think they stink.
You can.
All right.
Do you think they make the tournament?
I still think they may fall apart down the stretch. I'm gonna chalk this one up to a little COVID magic or a little funky year magic. I think Northwestern needs to come back to earth and be the stinky Big Ten team they are eventually.
All right, so I think that might say more about Michigan State, Ohio State, Indiana. Then their 3 wins this week.
I guess so, man. I guess so.
So let's move to stock down. Top of my list is MSU. We're gonna do a whole MSU segment for 10 minutes or so in just a second. But I mean, it's very clear at this point, Michigan State is not what we thought they would be preseason, right?
Uh, I don't know. We kind
Right
of
now.
okay. Right now, yes. I mean, there was a lot of chatter from me even personally after that Duke win, and we had a pretty good win at Notre Dame. People tried to tell me that we were having some lulls against teams like UOD in Western Michigan, and I was like, nah, we're just shaking them dudes off. We're just playing our game. That's just get your stats up type game. We ain't got to worry about that. But there are some legit concerns about this team.
Save them. We'll get to Michigan State in a second. Let's do the last stock down team for now, Kentucky. And we have to make mention of Kentucky. The whole John Calipari thing this week was wild.
Can their stock really go down if it's already down?
We have to at least address it on the pod, right? The Cameron Fletcher incident.
Yeah, we do. You can go first.
So if you haven't seen it, which if you're listening to this, I assume you have seen it, but John Calipari basically suspended Cameron Fletcher, who is I think, top 60 freshman recruit this year. He was a 4-star guy, kind of the guy that if you look back at the last 10 years of John Calipari's recruiting classes, they're the guys that get swept under the rug and never really get the opportunity. And they usually end up transferring out or, maybe they stay 4 years and work their way into the rotation as an upperclassman. But if you are the 60th ranked freshman and you're expecting playing time at Kentucky, you're just not going to get it under John Calipari. That's been historically proven. Now, I don't know what Cameron Fletcher expects this year, other than, to your point, you've made this many times, Cart, Kentucky's awful. They're absolutely horrible. So if he's riding the bench for 35 minutes in a game and they're just turning the ball over and missing wide open shots and making defensive confusion mistakes, I mean, that's got to be really frustrating for a guy who thinks he could contribute.
Yeah, and like you said, I made this point kind of many times before. There's no excuse for Cameron Fletcher doing what he was doing. You cannot make a scene. I don't care what happens. You cannot break down on the bench. You cannot make a scene about not playing. Even though you're a young man, you're still a man, and you're a young man, and you can't be doing things like that on the bench. But at the same time, if the team's out there not getting it done, and you're sitting on the bench, and you're like, "What the hell?" Like, I can't do what he's doing right now. Like, I can't be mad at him because if I had to watch Terrence Clark do what he's been doing these past couple games, I'd be like, damn, man, I can go out there and do that, especially with a guy like Cameron Fletcher. Because actually, don't know if you know this, G, but he was on Michigan State's radar. Izzo was personally on him pretty heavy, and I did think there was a small chance that he would come to Michigan State. But he's a player who's high motor, high athlete. Not really sure if the skill matches up to a Kentucky level wing or guard, especially with what they had. But I see where he's coming from, but he can't do that. But I think that we can both agree on, G, that I don't know if Calipari really handled this the right way necessarily. And I feel like we talked about this and you don't think he did.
Have you ever cried on the bench?
Have I ever cried on the bench?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
You can't cry on the bench, man.
You can't cry on the bench. And he cried on the bench. That's what happened here. Yeah. So I actually think it's an awful look for Calipari to air him out publicly the way he did. But Calipari does a lot of things that I would categorize as awful looks. So I'm not surprised by that. Like, that's on brand Coach Cal for me. I think he's totally lost control of this team. I think he has understood now that the train is off the tracks, and I think he's ready to watch it crash and burn. I don't think if this happened 2 weeks ago when they were 1-2 that Cal handles it this way. I think he handles it this way because they're 1-5. I think he's looking at their schedule thinking there's no way I get this team to the tournament, and I think he's ready to cut ship with everybody. I mean, he cuts ship with them anyway, right? Because they either go to the NBA or he brings one guy back from any given recruiting classes. So
right. And honestly, I think it could even get worse because if I'm a guy like BJ Boston, I'd be like, 1-5. Damn, my hip's starting to act up. I'm feeling a little something's going on. I don't know if I want to risk it. I might as well just put my name in and dip out because he ain't doing nothing playing for a team that ain't even going to make the tournament and a team where the talent around him is subpar, which is really uncharacteristic of a Calipari team.
Yeah.
So I mean, is a guy like BJ Boston, who I was very high on going into the year, I think unfortunately he's hurt his stock a little bit this year.
He has. Yeah. I mean, no doubt. I think the NBA people that we've talked to The few that we know through the locker room app have definitely.
I was going to say, NBA. Look at us talking about NBA people that.
Yeah, I didn't mean that as a name drop. I literally could. I'm not going to do that, but there are people that have been very open that Boston has hurt his stock. So take that for what you will. Do you think? I mean, any chance Kentucky turns this around?
No, I don't think it's any. I think there's zero chance. I think they are who they are.
I mean, they would need like a runaway finish in the SEC to make the tournament even at this point, right? They're not getting in with like 14 losses.
No,
they've got 6.
They'd have to go on a run of all runs, and I don't think they can do that in the SEC either. So
yeah, me either. I'm with you. All right, so let's go back to the Spartans. It's time to have the conversation. Carter 0-2 this week. The loss to Northwestern at Northwestern, which actually does not look nearly as bad as it did last week when we recorded our podcast, followed by a loss at the Breslin Center at home to a really, really good Wisconsin team. I want to throw it over to you first to give your take, but I actually have some thoughts that might surprise you about where Michigan State is at right now.
Okay, do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first, but I wanted to give that little teaser.
Thank you. So first off, we were playing Wisconsin, a team, Greg, that you watch your Michigan Wolverines play them. You watch the Spartans play them. You watch a lot of Wisconsin basketball.
Yes.
What is one thing they don't do well? They don't score the ball well. Am I right?
Well,
historically, when Wisconsin plays, they're low scoring games, correct?
Oh, yeah. I don't think that means that they don't score well, though. They play a slow tempo.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, bad choice of words by me. They don't score a lot. They score very efficiently, and they score well, but they don't score a lot.
Correct.
I've seen games where we play Wisconsin, and they score 45 points or 50 points in the whole game. We gave that up in the first half. And honestly, a lot of the buckets were just Wisconsin players making better plays and being better than Michigan State players. Josh Langford was getting exposed on defense. Rocket Watts again was getting exposed on defense. Even Aaron Henry had some defensive breakdowns as well. I think really the accumulation of the game was I'm definitely less mad at this game than I was at the Northwestern game because, we didn't play the best game. We only had 13 turnovers, 14 turnovers. But they scored about 30 points off those turnovers at least. I don't know the exact numbers, but they capitalized, and that's what good teams do. They capitalize off turnovers. When you're playing a good team like Wisconsin, you can't make mistakes and let them capitalize on it. And I think the main takeaway from this game for me is that I need to give Wisconsin their flowers. Wisconsin's really good. They got a lot of guys who are 2 years younger than me, and I'm 27. So, they got a bunch of men's league players out there, but they're damn good ones. So they got a lot of 5th and 6th year seniors, and they're really good.
But you know what's going to happen though? Everybody's going to come back next year. I want to make that a sleepers backed prediction right now. Wisconsin will bring back 4 starters minimum from this team next year.
Wait, from this team? So from this Final Four team? From this Wisconsin Final Fours?
I'm not saying they're going to go Final Four. I have come around. I was a huge Wisconsin skeptic. I now think they're clearly one of the 10 best teams in the country. They got to be the Big Ten title favorite at this point. And they're just good, right? They're experienced. They've all been through the ringer. They all shoot the ball well. They all defend well. You have to go out and beat them. And I honestly thought, I said this last week, you needed a big performance from one guy. Joey Hauser gave you that performance. 27 points, 7 of 9 shooting, 3 for 3 from 3, 7 rebounds. I thought that was the best Joey Hauser has played in a Spartan uniform. I thought if I saw that box score, I would say, oh yeah, Michigan State won this game. I truly would have thought that. But Wisconsin's better than I even thought they were. I mean, they took the air out of that Michigan State team in the second half after I thought Michigan State threw every single punch they could in the first. It was a tie game at half. And I feel better about Michigan State after this loss, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, they're 0-2 in the Big Ten, which is something you rarely ever see from a Tom Izzo team, but you can't count this loss against them. I don't think that's a game they're supposed to win based on how well Wisconsin played. And I think if anything, that showed that they can hang step for step with the best team in the Big Ten for a 20-minute stretch. I truly didn't believe that going into this. And I took a lot of shit, by the way, from one of our OG listeners, Tammy. Tammy, I know you're listening to this, and I hope you text me after this, because I am not coming in with an agenda to just rip on Michigan State. I swear I'm not. But I haven't been impressed with what I've seen for the last 3 weeks. And the first half against Wisconsin, to me, is the best half of basketball Michigan State has played all season, even including the Duke wins. And it made me more confident, like, at very least, this team will figure it out in Big Ten play. And I do believe that's where they're at this point.
Yeah, and even the point to them playing like, to the end of the game with this team, there was a point in the game, I think at the second half when we came out, we were up 9. And I was like, okay, let's put our feet on these dudes' necks and let's end them. And credit to Wisconsin and them being, the old team, the good players that they are, they're not rattled by that. They're saying they just regroup. Demetric Trice took over the game by himself. Like, credit to them. So I think, like you said, G, like, of course, like, as a Michigan State fan, like, I'm salty as hell. Like, we're 0-2 and we can't win in the Big Ten. And we lost to 2 Under Armour sponsored teams. Like, no disrespect, shout out Teej, but that's like a slap in the fucking face. It hurts, but at the same time, you just got to kind of just take that licking and maybe hopefully we learn from it and just give Wisconsin their credit. Like, they got it done. They're good. You're welcome, Sean, if you're listening. Wisconsin's good.
Yeah, if Michigan State were to lose at Minnesota, which if you're listening to this, it's probably the day of that game. We're recording this on a Sunday night. If Michigan State loses that game and they're 0-3 in Big Ten play, then I think you put your finger on the panic button. You don't press it, but the finger's on the button. Right now, the finger's not on the panic button.
So if we're recording this on Sunday, if you're listening to this tomorrow, and maybe you're by chance listening to it after the Minnesota game, if we lose, this was fun. I enjoy doing these segments. I enjoy talking to Greg and everyone about basketball, but this will officially be my last episode if we lose to Minnesota tomorrow. I'm
not letting that happen. Also, I tweeted this and I got some educated responses from people, but why didn't Tom Izzo recruit Demetric Trice? He's a legacy guy.
I have an answer for that.
Cassius Winston. I get it.
No, that's actually not it.
Oh, what is it?
That's not it. Okay. I think that you can't really put this on Izzo because Demetric Trice is a dude who at the time coming out of high school was a kind of lower level player. I believe he ended up doing a prep year actually after high school, and he redshirted his freshman year at Wisconsin. So he's had a lot of time to develop, I think. And
Izzo loves guys that take a lot of time. Josh Langford's 25.
Josh Langford took a lot of time because he's got glass feet. Like, it's not, Demetric Trice had to take his time because he was a little boy.
Is Josh Langford the only McDonald's All-American with glass feet in McDonald's history?
Well, he had glass feet. He came in with mono. He went bald. Like, he had a lot going on, man.
Okay.
God, man.
I'm just saying that if Demetric Trice were on this Michigan State team right now, that would solve every problem they have other than the center position, right? I mean, then Rocket slides down to the 2.
I'd much rather have Nate Reavers than Demetric Trice.
I would have loved to see Demetric Trice in a Michigan State uniform, but you can't have everything you want, folks. Michigan State is at Minnesota tomorrow or today, probably, if you're listening to this, or a couple days ago if you're listening to this at the end of next week. So looking forward to that game. And I think, can we call it a must-win for Michigan State at this point?
Yeah, and let's hope Marcus Carr doesn't go for 40.
He may, but they can win that game even if Marcus Carr goes for 40. This is going to be a grinded out classic Michigan State win. I'll go on record with that right now. I'm confident in that.
All right, I respect that.
All right, let's go across the state to them boys from Ann Arbor, the undefeated Michigan Wolverines, the first place in the Big Ten Michigan Wolverines, who on Christmas Day went to Lincoln, Nebraska, one of the furthest road trips in Big Ten play, and came away with a double-digit win with a 20-point output from Franz Wagner, who we've been ripping on all year. So I'll throw it to you, Cart. You tell me what I'm supposed to think of this Michigan team at this point.
I think we need to I know you're going to hate this, but I think we got to wait and see another week or two on Michigan. They're doing what they need to do. They're winning games. You can't get mad at them for that. They're undefeated. They're doing what they need to do. But I think that we need to wait and see another week before I really give you my actual Michigan.
Nothing's going to change in a week, Cart.
Okay. And also, shout out Adrian Nunez. He just went over 2.7 million followers on TikTok. We'd be remiss if we didn't say shout out to him. Keep dancing. Keep doing what you do.
Hey, maybe we should get Adrian Nunez to sponsor the pod, or even better, on the pod. That'd be helpful, right?
Yeah, well, he okay, but also he don't want to see my TikTok drafts. I got the moves and I got the Corvette.
So here's the problem, Cart. Michigan this week goes at Maryland on Thursday. They are home to Northwestern on Sunday. If they go 2-0 in both of those games, we're going to come back here next Sunday night, record the next episode, and you're going to tell me we still got to wait and see because they haven't beat anybody.
That's not what I'm.
You know that. You know that's true.
I mean, yeah, but it's different though. I got an agenda.
Well, that's not, I thought we were going objective. I thought you gave yourself flowers for being objective, and that's what we were trying to do. New wave Cart. Just because Michigan State loses a couple, we got to lose all objectivity.
All right. Okay. You're right. Okay. Let me take this time. Michigan is really, they're doing what they need to do. They're winning games. I think they got talent. I mean, you can talk more about it, but like Hunter Dickinson is really, really good. They still got Livers, who I think can play to even another level. Sean D. Brown was a really underrated kind of, grad transfer. Not a lot of people talked about him necessarily. I think Mike Smith was more of the highly sought after or more of the highly talked about grad transfer. I think even Mike Smith has been better than I expected. There's been a lot of guys who have been better than I expected. Jawan has done a good job coaching.
Clip that. I'm marking the time down for that right now. I'm clipping that immediately after this episode. I love it.
So, I mean, credit to the boys in blue.
Wow. Thank you, Cart. So, yeah, I think you said most of it, but the difference between this Michigan State team, where they're at right now, and this Michigan team, and you look like you're about to hack up a lung. Are you that disgusted by giving Michigan like 2 sentences of praise?
Mm-hmm.
It's understandable. So I think the difference between the two teams is that the questions we had for Michigan preseason have been answered pretty much across the board by overwhelmingly exceeding expectations. Hunter Dickinson is way better than anyone could have realistically predicted for him as a freshman. I think he's an all Big Ten guy immediately, as long as he stays healthy. I think he's a top 4 center in the conference, in a conference that's loaded with Luka Garza, Trace Jackson Davis, and Kofi Coburn. And he's, to me, not far off that level of guy. Obviously, the offensive production isn't anything close to Luka. No one in the history of college basketball is close to that. But Hunter's a guy that's you can pretty much count on 20 and 7 a night right now if he plays 30 minutes. And I think you're going to see those minutes go up at point guard. Same thing. Mike Smith is better than we could have reasonably expected. Great ball handler, great offensive player, very unselfish. I think the concerns with him were, he's only been a gunner on bad teams historically. He put up crazy numbers, but how's that going to translate to being 3rd, 4th option type? And he's totally loved that. I think the X factor for this Michigan team right now is that Mike Smith and Sean D. Brown, the 2 transfers, are guys that so clearly, it's literally visible if you're watching these games, they just want to be on a winning team. They've played 6 combined years of basketball on losing teams. They have never experienced high-level success. And I think there's an unselfishness to both of their games where, yeah, they could go out and get 20 on a given night, but they're totally content to just go out, in Sean D's case, to really defend at a high level, to go out and guard the other team's best wing scorer, and then offensively to just make the right play, shoot open threes, and facilitate. And then, Michigan's deep. They're balanced, right? Isaiah Livers is just solid. He's not going to be a first-team all-conference guy, but he's going to shoot 40% from 3, make open looks. Hunter Dickinson can be the go-to guy. And at this point, I don't even think they need Franz to take the next step that everybody expected him to. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think, and this is, I'm going to keep my Michigan praise going. I think this is what's even scarier. The fact that Michigan has done a good job of, like you said, answering questions. Like, imagine if they're, the players who have stepped up to this point who we kind of didn't expect, or maybe we thought they would go to a different path, but it kind of did more of a positive path. Imagine if, like, the Franz production catches up with that.
Right.
Imagine if we get, a player in Isaiah Livers who I think has another level that he could take it to and that we have seen in his Michigan career in the past. And then you have a point guard like Mike Smith, and we haven't seen a point guard like Mike Smith with Michigan. With having Xavier Simpson the past couple of years, it's been mostly defense, passing. Now they got an actual offensive threat at that position. Of course, he's lacking in other areas that Xavier was defensively, but it's just a whole different dynamic for this team. So, like I said, wait and see, wait and see. But up until this point, snaps for the boys in Maize and Blue.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I think the difference again to me with where Michigan is versus Michigan State is that if Michigan finds themselves in a tight game, they know where they need to go, I think. And I think in the non-conference, their issues, that overtime game against Oakland, it was a team still trying to figure that out. They thought it needed to be Franz. They thought if Franz was off, they didn't really know where to go. Then it needs to go to Livers and a ball screen for Livers. That's not the real answer. I mean, now if they're in trouble, if they go cold, it's throw the ball to Hunter Dickinson in the post. And then he's either going to get a bucket or a double team. He's such a high-level passer. If you send a double, a guy's getting an open three. So I think that, to me, is the most reliable go-to guy that we've got in the state of Michigan as hoops fans right now. And I think on the flip side, Michigan State needs to find that. And I do think they have options. I think it could be Aaron Henry. I think you've said it needs to be Aaron Henry. It could be Rocket Watts. It could be Joey Hauser. But I don't think Michigan State knows what that answer is, and I don't think they get things on the right track until they figure it out internally first.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm interested to see guys like, I think we had one game this year where we had those three players who I thought would be Michigan State's kind of breakout guys, and Rocket, Hauser, and Henry all play well. And that was the Duke game, and I think that was our best played game up until this year. So these are the times when you have the onus put on Aaron Henry to be the best player. It's times like this where you got to step up. We're 0-2 in the Big Ten. We need a win. He missed some shots at the rim last game and had some turnovers, which I think he normally doesn't do. And he's had two, what I would say, lackluster Aaron Henry games. So this is the time to be that best player. You have the ability to be. Go out there and, whatever way, however, you got to find a way to get us a dub tomorrow. No excuses.
Last thing, and then we'll wrap the college basketball segment for this episode. What is Aaron Henry shooting from three this season?
I'm going to say somewhere around the playoff Paul George range.
He's taking 2.8 attempts per game from three. He's making them at a 13% clip.
So I was right.
That's playoff P. Rocket, 4 attempts per game at a 30% clip. It's just hard to win if those are your two primary offensive options.
Very true.
But they're two guys that can shoot, so maybe it's as simple as they start making shots and they look a lot better. We'll see.
I'd like to see a lot more Aaron Henry going to the basket, to be honest.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's get a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is presented by IKEA. Carter, you were at IKEA today.
I was at IKEA today, and I got to shout out IKEA on the drip. They have bucket hats for sale. That is something that I've never seen before. But shout out IKEA. Your store is way too big, but it's got so much stuff. Y'all got great side tables, very low price, and very chic lamps. I want to say a shout out to y'all. If any IKEA reps are watching this, kudos to y'all. Y'all got my nightstand looking right. Nice and well lit, looking good. And the bucket hat drip is absolutely brazy. So shout out to IKEA. Thank you.
Walk out with a bucket hat, a plate, lunch, and a futon. IKEA, a big store for a big man with a big podcast.
Hey, Art Van could never.
All right, let's move to the NBA. Week 1 of the NBA is in the books. There's some teams that have surprised me. There's some teams that have disappointed me. But I'll throw it your way first. What are your biggest reactions to week 1 of professional basketball?
I think that my biggest reaction would be that the Nets are here. The Nets are here. KD is back. Kyrie is back. And that team is dangerous. They're going to be something. They are going to be something. Karis LeVert off the bench. Steve Nash with the ankle showing drip. As long as they keep together and they keep saging the arenas, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. So I think the Nets are my biggest takeaway from week 1.
Me too. They are the one team I have with stock up after week one. I was a Nets skeptic. I believe I picked the under on their win total. I'm already regretting that. The most curious thing about the Nets to me right now is the way they're running their second unit rotation. They basically let LeVert go be the best guy alongside four guys that were a playoff team last year. I mean, they're rolling out the team that they went toe to toe in the first round. I believe was it the Raptors or the Bucks they played in the first round last year? I'm forgetting now, but it was a high level team, right? And those games were close down the stretch for a couple games. Mm-hmm. So it's guys with playoff experience that it's nice for me to see LeVert get a chance to still be that go-to guy, because I was a little worried with KD back, he's going to get forgotten about. But, it works really well because KD and Kyrie get to rest themselves. They don't lose a ton. I think they have the best second unit in the league right now. And then, like you said, Kevin Durant looks back and better than ever. And God forbid, Kyrie thinks he is the best player on a title team, and he might actually be right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to maybe take a quick. Do we got to give Steve Nash some kudos? Because I think he until the point. No, we don't. What? I mean,
we're not giving kudos after 2 games of an NBA season.
But Kerr being part of that second unit and playing the role that he is that not kudos to Nash at all?
No, it's not. Not 2 games into the season. If they're 10-0 after 10 games or 9-1, and guys are still looking good, and KD and Kyrie aren't tweeting like cryptic burner messages about like weird shifts in the universe, then sure. But like the gravitational pull is going to be something that Kyrie uses as an excuse at some point this season.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. That very well may happen. But yeah, the Nets are my takeaway from week one of the NBA season for sure.
Look, if there's one thing I know, Kyrie Irving is a great player to have on your team when things are going well. When things stop going well, Kyrie Irving is not a great player to have on your team. So we'll see. If things go well all season, this team could easily win a title.
Yeah, it's definitely a scary thought that your best player can be affected by, like, if the winter solstice is like, or the Earth's like off tilt by 4 degrees, he could be and he could be completely mentally off. That definitely scares me. But as long as, his chakra stays in line and all that, whatever talk, I'm good with the Nets and how they're looking right now. That's a scary duo.
When the ball goes up, though, he's performing. I'm a guy historically who's been ready to jump on Kyrie given the opportunity. But yeah, he's hooping. He's hooping, and he's hooping in creative ways. All the off the dribble stuff looks great. The finishes. He's fun to watch when things are clicking. So we'll see.
Yeah, I thought you might have said the Clippers, but they had a tough one today.
Good Lord, down 50 at half, and they did not chip away in the second half either.
No, they ended up losing by 51.
So is Kawhi that important? Are we saying that's why it was a 50-point loss? Just Kawhi was out today?
You want me to praise Kawhi and Michigan on the same podcast?
I wanted to give you a chance. I wanted to see what you say.
A little bit too much of me.
Okay. Kawhi doesn't make them win that game, but like, where's the heart from playoff P today?
He said the game was on him, but that's what you get with Paul George. I'm not gonna fall for it. Paul George could have an MVP season this year, but it doesn't matter because when he touches them playoffs, the boy is Swiss cheese. Like, he's garbage. It just is what it is. Like, and I'm not gonna change my stance until it happens. So he can do all this during the regular season. I've seen this book before. I ain't buying it though.
We do have to give the Clippers a little love. The Serge Ibaka, Nick Batum additions looked fantastic on both the Christmas games and on opening night.
Yeah, definitely good. And I think we talked about it in the last episode. Though it might not seem like it, Ibaka overall as a player is an upgrade, I think, for their team concept over a Montrezl Harrell. And that's no disrespect to Montrezl Harrell, because I think he's a great fit for the Lakers. I think he does what he needs to do for them, and he's a great player, or he's a good player for his role. But I think more so what, the Clippers need defensively and shooting-wise, you can get that from Ibaka, and a guy who's been there before and done that before and has won championships. So it's a good player to have, I think. And despite the loss that happened today, the Clippers did look good in those first 2 games as well.
Luke Kennard got the start today, and this will be a good segue into talking about our team, the Detroit Pistons. But Luke Kennard looked like Luke Kennard. And I, for one, am thankful that we did not give that guy an extension because, man,
I can't wait for the story to come out on what Luke Kennard has over Steve Ballmer. He's got to know something.
Look, and I know there's Pistons fans who are super high on Luke Kennard, and I respect that opinion. Luke Kennard is a good rotation piece who's going to be great in his role off the bench for a contender. I am ecstatic that he is with the Clippers and he gets to play that role. Where I draw the line is Pistons fans who are like, what is our front office doing? How could we do that? What do we want out of Luke Kennard? 16 a night on a team that is in between an 8 seed and the 12th spot in the conference?
Right, there's no way we're crying over a 6'5" Kyle Singler. The dude is 6'5".
That's disrespectful. I'm not letting you do that.
Bro, I'm sorry. He's 6'5" with a 5'9" wingspan.
He's 6'5". He is a bucket. He has more shake to his game and a little vision. But
any Pistons fan out there who was really trying to convince me that Luke Kennard and Donovan Mitchell are on the same level, I hope you hit every red light on your way to work every day for the rest of your life and hear Chance the Rapper on the radio. I don't
think anyone's trying to convince you of that, though. But I hear Pistons fans still claiming this was the worst front office offseason we've ever had. We can't trust Troy Weaver. And you know what I wanted out of the season, Cart? I wanted competitive losses. And we are 2 for 2 in that book. And I could not be happier. Here's what's abundantly clear to me about this Pistons team. The veterans that we do have are not good enough to beat even mediocre teams in the NBA. Blake Griffin looks even more hobbled than he looked at the end of last season. Jeremy Grant, God bless him. I think Jeremy Grant might be my favorite player on the Pistons at this point. He's on good nights, he'll give you maybe 20. On bad nights, he'll go 0 for 9 from the floor. And I'm here for the ride. I hope he has more 20-point nights than he does have 0-point nights because I hope we trade him at the deadline for something. But I'm all in. I'm happy with this roster with where we're at right now. I just wish they'd play some of the young guys a little more. I'd love to see some Sadiq Bey minutes.
Yep, I definitely am on this kind of the same. Me and you are on the same page when it comes to where we want to see the Pistons and what we want to see happen. And I actually have a little trivia question for you. Who is currently leading the NBA in minutes played right now?
Oh, my God. It's probably Derrick Rose.
No, it is Blake Griffin.
It's Blake?
He is not going to last. This is the tank is in formation. You can get in if you want to.
So the tank is in formation, but I don't think Coach Casey knows.
Do you?
I don't think Dwayne Casey knows. I think Dwayne Casey just looks at this roster and thinks, lose. Well, I can't do that. I'm Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, true. But I want to see more Sadiq minutes. I even want to find a way to get Isaiah Stewart in the game just to see him get some minutes somewhere. The one alarming thing is I'm not really liking Sekou's kind of rotation the way it is. I think, and I don't know what it is. It just is. It's his confidence. I don't really know what's going on, but it just doesn't look right when he's out there to me.
Well, I think the thing is he's never going to be a first option. So when you throw him in the second unit, he almost has to play that second option role. And I think what we've seen is both Svi Mikhailiuk and Josh Jackson have excelled being that first option on the floor with the second unit. Josh Jackson looks great. I could not be happier that we took a flyer on him. I think he'll either have value as a trade asset or value for a Pistons team that maybe is ready to compete 2-3 seasons from now if he's still on the roster. But I agree. Sekou is a little concerning right now. And I think the problem there is, Jeremy Grant's really redundant to having him on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that turns into for Sekou. Maybe at the end of the year, the roster looks different than it is now. I also wish we'd let Killian Hayes play through some mistakes a little more. I know a lot of people on Pistons Twitter, especially Nick Henkel, were going off about this after game 2, where, Derrick Rose is making some of the worst decisions you can see on a basketball court, and he's played all overtime periods of that Cavaliers game, whereas Killian is just yanked.
Yeah, I think, that's definitely what I want to see, but maybe we're kind of trying to showcase D Rose and then end up moving him and just give all that to Killian.
Maybe. Let me ask you this. This is a tough question, and I don't know if Pistons fans are ready for this question. But do we really believe in Killian Hayes?
Yes.
I don't want to overreact. That's a terrible way to even pose that question. Yes, of course we believe in Killian Hayes. But 2 games into his career, Have you seen what you wanted to see out of Killian Hayes to believe he's the point guard of the future?
I would say yes. If I had to answer that 2 games I would like to answer that maybe 25 or I don't know. I think I've seen enough because even with like the shooting woes, I've seen enough in how he handles the pick and roll and just things that he does, out of the pick and roll decisions. I think he's making the right. Okay, he's had a couple tough ones, but he's a younger point guard. I think for the most part, he's making the right decisions or taking the right shots. He's just not hitting them. But to be honest, I'm good with him just doing that. I'd rather see him out there working through that stuff and doing what he has to do than seeing Derrick Rose out there and getting a majority of the minutes. I'm definitely not, team we made the wrong pick yet or anything like that.
No, of course not. Of course not.
So, maybe I did want to see a little more out of Killian, but I'm not like panicked or anything.
I mean, you and I were both huge Killian Hayes fans. This was the dream pick. We were and are ecstatic that the Pistons took him at 7.
Yes.
I think my gut take on Killian right now is he looks like he's playing with handcuffs on, both figuratively and honestly a little bit literally. It looks like he is not allowed to do certain things on the court. And it looks like even with the things he is allowed to do, he's just really tentative in doing them. Like, I believe in Killian's ability to get into the paint pretty much whenever he wants right now. I believe in his ball screen reads, his vision, his decision-making. Like, all of that looks high level. This looks like a guy you should just entrust an NBA offense to and kind of let him go out there and go. But that's not what's happening. Killian's kind of just picking and choosing his spots, I think. And the problem with that right now is over 50% of the time when he picks a spot, he picks a James Harden step back 3 that he's hitting at like a 20% clip.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of that. Like, does that make me think maybe long-term, like he has the confidence in his shot that someday he's going to make those shots? I think that's where I'm at right now, but it's a little confusing, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now on Google Translate. Juste aller. Just go. Just go, man. No handcuffs. Just go. Just do it. Just play, man. I've seen his games overseas. I've seen him play enough. I know that he's got the confidence just to go out there and go. So yeah. I'm just going to chalk it up to him being young in his first couple games in the NBA, short training camp, maybe mentally, something like that. Hopefully Dwayne Casey's not doing anything to kind of like say like, all right, relax. No, just let him go. Let him go out there. Let him spread his little French.
I think he is. My read on this, honestly, is that it's like you need to run the offense, son. Like,
that scares me.
And it scares me too. But I mean, down the stretch, it was like if Blake Griffin's not getting a touch at the high post against the 2-3 zone, like the Pistons didn't have a backup plan. And we had 3 straight turnovers off of trying to get the ball to Blake.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. I'm optimistic. I love Killian, but yeah, it's like the reads are there, but he won't make them. And I want to know why.
Just do it, man. You can do
it. What was it? Jay Saleh?
Juste aller.
Juste aller.
Juste aller.
All right, let's get one more word from a sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by What's in Our Cup. Carter, what's in your cup?
Love my What's in My Cup sponsor. Today I am drinking on a Lagunitas Hazy Wonder. I recently located a new liquor store down the street from me that has a beer cave, and they have a lot of beers. And I saw this can, I was like, it's dope, and it's pretty good. So I'm drinking on a Lagunitas Hazy Wonder. It's 7%, so it's making me feel good on this Sunday, and I'm enjoying it. It tastes good. G, what you working with? Mason jar or no mason jar?
Bucket hat cat. No, today, no mason jar. Today we've got a drink that my wife made me, which would be a tequila Sprite with 2 limes. And it passes the taste test.
Wait, Mal made it? Mm-hmm. Ooh, dangerous. Heavy hand Patterson over there. I know her everything walked out. Sorry.
Hey, she knows how to make a drink. The girl works in the alcohol world. It's why I married her, Cart, among many reasons.
She's got a heavy hand for a good reason.
All right. Thank you to What's in Our Cup. Thank you to IKEA for sponsoring this episode. We've got a new segment today, Cart. We've got questions from the Sleepers audience. We reached out to the Sleepers community on Twitter and Instagram. Speaking of that, follow us on Twitter at Sleepers Media. Follow us on Instagram at Sleepers Media so that you can participate in these Q&As. We will do these going forward. We'll give you 24 hours, submit questions. We will give you a shout out and answer them on the podcast. So we've got 5 questions today. These are spanning all across our world of basketball. You'll get some Michigan, you'll get some Michigan State, you'll get some college hoops. And we actually have one NBA question even today, NBA lifestyle question.
Okay.
So question 1, this was submitted from the wonderful Brian Bradley. What does Izzo need to change to get MSU back on track?
Quick answer. I don't think it's on Izzo for the changes, to be honest. I think that maybe he can do something with the rotation, maybe shortening it. I think maybe the last game he did make a little mistake, leaving Foster in a little longer than I thought he should have been in, getting bullied in the post against Wisconsin. But I think that, this is a rare occasion where we can't look to the coach. I think the players got to look at themselves. And more specifically, Aaron Henry and Rocket Watts need to look at themselves. And I think they need to step up. And I hope they will step up. So I think that'd be my answer for that one.
Okay. I agree that guys need to play better, but I disagree that there aren't specific things that Izzo needs to do ASAP to help that happen.
Why did I know that was going to be?
We can't just sit here and say oh, guys just got to shoot better.
Yeah, you're lucky I know Brian. Otherwise, I think this would be you on your burner account asking a question just to tee you up for an Izzo question.
Before I give my answer, Cart, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Do you want to stand by your slanderous tweets to me in the middle of that meltdown where I tweeted that this is a roster management issue, that, Izzo basically has to choose between Rocket Watts when he's super inefficient and Foster Loyer, who's going to give up a bucket every single possession. And he has no other options, and that's on Izzo. I tweeted that. And you came right at my neck in the moment on that. I want to give you an opportunity. Do you stand by that, or do you owe me an apology?
I stand by it.
Why? I mean, that's a roster management issue.
All right. Can it be like half stand by it, half I apologize?
Listen, here's something I'm going to say. This is a public service announcement to all Michigan State fans that I know. I am one of you. You need to understand this. I am a Spartan graduate. I watch every single Michigan State game. I was a member of the Izzone for 4 years. I root for Michigan State and I watch them. Spartan fans need to learn this. We can criticize Tom Izzo without being traitors. We can be Michigan State fans and we can say that Izzo makes a mistake from time to time. Yes. That doesn't mean that Tom Izzo isn't a Hall of Fame top 5 coach in the country. That he is.
Okay.
But Tom Izzo has not done a perfect job always.
No, he has not. And last game, I will give it to you. That was, I think, a part of that game was on coaching. I'll give that to you. That's what you want.
I'm not saying the game. I'm saying the biggest issue other than the center position, which again, who does that fall on that all the centers suck on this team other than Tom Izzo? I mean, there are 2 massive recruiting errors on the way this roster is built. And I think it's hard to evaluate where this team stands without looking back and saying, man, Izzo sort of made some mistakes here that have put this team in a hard spot.
One might say.
One did say, and one was criticized by his own podcast guest host. But
out of love.
Co-host, not guest
he also
host.
caught me on a hot ball. I was lashing out at anybody.
Back to Brian's question here. I think I had 3 things written down. I think you could go small ball in the front court. I think you should see some Malik Hall and Joey Hauser lineups together. I think you can trust both those guys, and you got to somehow get 5 guys you trust on the floor at once. Right now, I feel like Michigan State plays 4-on-5 with either a bad center or Foster Loyer. And I think we need to avoid those minutes at all costs. The easiest way to do that is Hall and Hauser together. I also think you need to trim the center rotation. I don't think we should be seeing Marcus Bingham right now. I know everybody wants him to be the starting center, but he doesn't have it right now. Maybe he does. Maybe he flips the switch, and by March he does. But if he gets more than 5 minutes a game right now, I think that's a massive mistake. And lastly, this is a crazy one, Cart. I think we should see some Aaron Henry point guard minutes.
I'm not mad at that. I actually, I liked all three of those, and I agree with them too. I think if you want to take a timestamp on that one as well. I think those are some good suggestions. Because of what you call his roster mismanagement, he's got to make these adjustments and live with what he has. So it's either something like Henry point guard minutes or Hoggard minutes or something. Something's got to change. So, if he is the great Hall of Fame coach that he is, he makes those adjustments.
Let me put my metaphorical positive bucket hat on here. Okay. Tom Izzo will make the adjustments. I think this team will be fine. They will make the NCAA tournament without question. They will be in the middle of the pack in the Big Ten, maybe even the upper middle pack. They will have a fine season when all is said and done. I believe that. I truly believe that with my heart and soul. But there are adjustments to be made. Hope he makes them sooner than later. Thank you, Brian, for the question. Question number 2 from the wonderful Luke Stumpos. Is Michigan the most underrated NBA portal in the last decade?
No, because I think most of the players that end up going to the league end up being bums.
Do they? Is Duncan Robinson a bum? Just set the record for most 3.5 on Christmas. Is Karis LeVert a bum? We just talked about him on the podcast.
Talked about another Michigan player that played on Christmas Day, DJ Wilson. Bum.
Look.
Stauskas, not in the league.
I mean, do we need to go one by one through Michigan State's players? I don't think we want to do that.
No, okay. Do you think they're the most underrated, though? I mean, there's a lot of...
So I was going to say no, and then I looked at the list. Here's the list. The top 3 are Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina. Obviously, none of those are underrated. Michigan slots in tied at 4th. They're tied this is most players currently in the NBA. Mm-hmm. Michigan's tied at 4th with Arizona, Kansas, Texas, and UCLA. I mean, to me, from that group, Michigan is the most surprising name on the list. Although, if you follow Michigan basketball, you aren't surprised. But they're not, that historical powerhouse like all the other schools on the list. I had one other name. For the record, Michigan State is tied for 11th with 8 players in the league. Michigan has 11. All the teams at 4 have 11. Florida State is tied with Michigan State with 8 players in the league. And Florida State is on a just blazing recruiting trail. So I think Florida State would be my non-Michigan answer, but I like the Michigan answer.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm a little biased too, because even though I do, I'm not, as you know, a Michigan fan. I can't give them.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm not. But I can't give them their flowers. They do a good job on development. There's a lot of dudes that come in there and maybe aren't the player or unheralded. Or, they do a good job of developing players and, capitalizing on when they need to capitalize with big games and get players to the next level. Like a guy like DJ Wilson was able to play his way into a top 20 pick. Like that's,
yeah,
you got to give them their credit. But I guess I wouldn't really say underrated because I kind of expect that out of Michigan, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think people in the state of Michigan probably have come to expect that. Question for you, Cart. So if Michigan put 11 guys in the NBA in the last decade, I think 10 of those are John Beilein guys. One of them was Jamal Crawford, who preceded him. Will Juwan Howard come in with less or more than 10 players in his next decade as Michigan's coach put in the NBA?
I think more. Because based on him as a recruiter, I think he's one of the best recruiters in the country.
Okay.
So
I like that.
I mean, there could be dudes that are top 20 or McDonald's All-Americans, maybe you have a down year, but they could just, based off their talent, they'll be able to be first-round picks or at least draft picks at worst. I think it'll be more of if you broke it down even more, like Beilein guys or guys that play like 3+ years at least, and you go to the NBA, I think Juwan's going to have a lot more guys that are one and dones, I think.
See, the problem with Beilein guys is that they were guys that were supposed to be 3 to 4 year players, and he ended up putting them in the league in 2 years, and that's what gave him down years. I mean, the little stretch in between national championship runner-ups they had was right after Nick Stauskas and Karis LeVert go pro. And LeVert was a 2-star recruit, and Stauskas is a guy you couldn't have anticipated was going to be in the league in 2 years.
Did LeVert play 2 years?
LeVert ended up playing 4 years, but he was hurt for one of them. Okay. So, I mean, that's it. I don't know. I don't think it's like, Beilein took 4-year guys. Like Wagner was a 3-year guy. Trying to think of who else. DJ Wilson was a 2-year guy, only played 1 season at Michigan in the rotation.
Crazy.
Nuts. All right, let's move to third question again. Thank you, Luke. Favorite to win Coach of the Year and why? This is from our good friend Chase. You want to go first on this?
Yeah, I'm sticking with my preseason pick and Steve Nash. Got the drip. As long as he keeps everything together, I think that one of the biggest accomplishments for him as a coach is if he keeps this team on track. Like if they get through a whole year playing at top level in his first year, when a lot of people had doubts that Steve Nash could really pull this team together and make it happen, I think he kind of rides that wave. Rides kind of the KD coming back story as well. I think it could be a perfect storm or a perfect disaster for them. So I'm still going to err on the side of it being a perfect storm. And I think that Nash is I'm still sticking with my preseason pick, Steve Nash for Coach of the Year.
So I interpreted this question as Coach of the Year in college basketball.
Oh,
so
shit.
I will endorse Carter's pick for Steve Nash at the NBA level, and I'll give out 2 answers for college.
Yeah, my college is Mark Few.
We'll have both covered. I don't have Mark Few on my list because I can't give Coach of the Year to a guy who was preseason number 1 in the country. I just can't, out of principle, even if they go undefeated. Wait,
can I get? Is it Shaka Smart? Can I guess?
It's not Shaka Smart. You can keep guessing though. I have 2 names.
Okay, last one. Is it Greg Gard?
It's not Greg Gard.
All right, I don't know. You go ahead.
Number 1, who I think will actually win the award, is Kelvin Sampson of Houston. They are 7-0. They've beaten Texas Tech, South Carolina, UCF. They're a team. Honestly, you want to talk about Gonzaga running the table. I would not be surprised to see Houston end up with 1 to 2 losses max. I think they're going to be the favorite in every single game the rest of the season. And then my second pick is one that if the season ended today, I think would have serious consideration. Steve Peichel from Rutgers, 6-1. I think if Rutgers were to finish with like a top 4 finish in the Big Ten, he's definitely Big Ten Coach of the Year, maybe a National Coach of the Year guy, but I think Rutgers will fall off a little bit.
That's some good picks. I'm Team Houston, so I really love that Sampson pick.
Yes, sir. Quentin Grimes. We love him.
Right.
All right. The next one, love this question from Drew. Non-conference All-American teams.
Okay, so let me make sure I did this right. I had up until this point the All-Americans for college basketball, correct?
Yeah, so I have a list of 5 names from the season thus far in college basketball.
All right, so here's my 5. The Big Cats, current All-Americans. I have 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. I got Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois at PG, or at guard. I have Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga at the other guard. I have Drew Timme at 1 forward spot. I have Corey Kispert at the other forward spot. And rounding out the top 5, or my All-American 5, I have Luka Garza at the center position.
Who's your National Player of the Year?
I'm sorry, what?
Who's your National Player of the Year?
My National Player of the Year is Luka Garza.
I like the picks. Wait, can you read the 5 again to me one more time?
Yeah, sorry. So I have Ayo Dosunmu, Jalen Suggs, Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, and Luka Garza.
So you have 3 Gonzaga players.
I do.
On your first team All-America list.
I did. I mean, yeah, I do.
Wow. Okay. I have 2. I only have 1 different name, and I left off Jalen Suggs, actually. I'm going to give the love to Corey Kispert this time. I have Ayo Dosunmu, Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, Luka Garza, and for my other guard spot, I'm going with Cade Cunningham.
Okay, so that's funny you did that because I was going back and forth between Cade Cunningham and Jalen Suggs. And I love Cade. I do. But, I mean, Suggs' numbers, they speak for themselves. And he's on the better team. Yeah,
so I said earlier this week, the thing that got me in the fight with Gonzaga fans was that Jalen Suggs is a top 10 player in the country. Drew Timme is a top 10 player in the country, but Corey Kispert's not. I think up until this point in the season, Kispert's numbers are the best of anyone on that Gonzaga team, though. So if we were really calling it today, I think you have to put him on the All-America team. To me, if you look at this list, I think Garza, Dosunmu, and honestly Kispert are 3 no-brainers. I think it makes sense to have a second from Gonzaga no matter what, whether it's Timme or Suggs. I would personally go Timme because I think he's their best player. And I think you could go Suggs. He's in the mix. There's probably some other names you could throw around off the top of my head. honestly don't have any that I would take over Cade or Jalen Suggs. But I don't know. Cade's been the real deal. I think, he's 18, 6, and 3 right now on pretty good percentages, doing it all for that Oklahoma State team. So he passes the eye test for me for sure.
You know Suggs numbers right now? Because I have them in front of me. And
Give them to me. Give them to me.
15, 6, and 6, 56% from the field, and 48% from 3.
So I'm going to post this, and we're going to get a retweet from our boy Sean from Making the Madness, who has every Gonzaga fan in the world following him. And they're going to somehow see this segment, and they're going to come after me with pitchforks again. But you can't give first-team All-America honors to a guy averaging 15 a game.
True. That is true. And to be honest, I think that if Baylor didn't have games canceled and they had a bigger scale, I would have had like a guy like Jared Butler there. Yeah. I think he would have had the numbers to be there and then playing on a really good Baylor team. But up until this point, his numbers aren't really there. He's had a couple bad shooting games as well, which kind of skew his percentages. But I'm sticking with it. I don't feel bad about putting 3 Gonzaga dudes on there. Cade would have been my other pick. That's what I was really going back and forth with, is Cade and Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I did. I wanted Jared Butler. I'm glad you brought him up. He is the one guy I looked up when considering the 5th spot, but 14 a game, not going to get it done. He's actually their second leading scorer behind Teague at Baylor right now. I do think, there was talk, could Cade Cunningham sneak into the National Player of the Year conversation? I think that answer is a resounding no. I don't think that's because of anything Cunningham has done. I think it's just because this is an unprecedented season from Luka Garza.
Yeah, I agree. It's like the numbers are stupid. 29, 10, 63% from the field. I think he has the greatest PER all time.
There's a chart out there. I'll try to find it and we can link it after this.
But on any level of basketball too, like NBA, college basketball, it's the greatest PER ever. It's literally
there's a specific graph of college basketball individual seasons, and you basically want to be in the top right corner. And Luka Garza is literally at the highest bar you could possibly be on both. The only guy even close, like he's the only dot within inches of where he is on the chart. The only guy in his range anywhere close is Trae Young from his one crazy season where he was super high usage. But then it's just a huge blob and you can't tell who anybody else is. So Luka's astronomical this year. Also, I'm actually pretty bummed that
the funny thing about that graph is there's like a guy who's 6 places behind him, and it's Luka Garza from last year.
Right.
So it's like he's literally got 2 of the top PER of all time.
People told me Iowa couldn't get better year to year, and Luka just heard that, chewed it up, spit it out, and said, "I'm going to go for 30 and 10 on 60% from 3 this year." Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if he can sustain it. We'll find out in Big Ten play, but not putting it past him. I do want to quickly just say, the one thing that bums me out about how good Luka Garza has been is that no one nationally is appreciating what we're getting from Ayo Dosunmu right now. Yes. He's averaging 24 a game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 52% from the floor, 44% from 3. I mean, this guy is not only high usage, he's efficient as hell. The one concern with him was that he couldn't shoot from 3. He's doing it off the dribble with a ton of attempts per game. I mean, any other year, I think 24, 7, and 5 on those percents is like a runaway National Player of the Year type season. And he just has no chance.
And he might not even win Big Ten Player of the Year with those numbers.
Right. It's absurd. I do think, I'll say this. I think between Garza and Ayo is more likely to sustain those numbers through Big Ten play.
I agree. I'd say the same.
So we shall see how it plays out, but it sounds like you and I are close to agreement there. Last question of the week from the listeners. This comes from Kelly, who asked, if your fiance could marry a basketball player, who would it be? Since you are the only one of us two with a fiance, I'm going to let you handle that question.
Yeah, shout out Kelly for this question. I've heard a couple of NBA players, not too many, but I have heard a couple. But one of them's okay with me because it's Michael Porter Jr., who has been called my doppelganger from time to time.
Well, so I want to ask real quick on this. Are you the one calling him your doppelganger, or are other people calling him your doppelganger?
No, other people are calling it.
I'm not saying you don't look like Michael Porter Jr., but I am saying that you did text me individually this week after a couple drinks and said, Michael Porter Jr. really does look like me.
because I was just like looking at him. I was like, damn, like he really does look like him. But I also used to get Sean May, but I lost a couple pounds recently, so I kind of took that one and went Michael Porter Jr. And the other one is actually Anthony Tolliver, which is really pisses me off because she just likes him because she sat courtside at a game with him and he passed her the ball. She shot it once. Luckily, I wasn't there because ain't no NBA player passing my girl the ball and playing shoot with her. That ain't happening in front of me. But those are the two for me. So.
Counterpoint though, wouldn't you rather she end up with Anthony Tolliver because he's lame and you could likely get her back? Like if Michael Porter Jr. stole your girl or my girl, that's just a tough break, right?
Michael Porter Jr. is kind of lame too. He wears a beanie whether it's hot or cold outside, and I really can't vibe with that.
He also didn't think COVID was real. So
yeah, he's a little strange. He's got a little Kyrie in him.
A little too much. That's not a good thing for his career prospects. But all right. Well, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate the question. Thank you to everybody who participated in the Sleepers Q&A this week. Again, follow us on Twitter and Instagram so that you can submit your questions.
Wait a damn minute. Are we not getting an answer from you?
Well, I don't have a fiance, and the question was posed.
Oh my! It's your wife.
I mean, you really want an answer? I put a ring on that. That means nobody's getting that. You'll be there soon. Give about 12 months, right? You'll be there soon.
Yeah, you're right. Fine.
My answer would be someone super lame like Alex Caruso.
NBA champion, the Caruso?
I mean, yeah, he has a ring, but like I got 3 high school state tennis championship rings, so that's like an NBA finals ring, right?
I mean, one might say.
One could say. All right. Pick off. The last segment of the week. Let's revisit what happened last week. We both went 2-3 in our best bets on this podcast. I had a bad week for daily picks, by the way, but I appreciate everybody sticking with me. I'm seeing the love. People telling me they need the picks. I wake up in the morning. I got a tweet to me saying, what are the plays today? I got likes coming at me from all over the place when I take an off day. I appreciate it, folks. And we're going to get things back on track this week. I feel good. I feel well rested. The holiday spirit went through me. I've got a clear head. I see the vision, and we're going to come in with good bets this week. Last week 2-3, both of us, but I'm technically 1-0 because I won the pick off by picking the Badgers to beat the Spartans. So I'm going to carry positive momentum. I'm 1-0 on the show against Carter, and we're going to pick 5 games again this week, starting with the Michigan State Spartans at the Minnesota Golden Gophers at the Barn.
Go on Michigan State.
Go on Michigan State. They're going to get it done. They have to. Tennessee at Missouri. Fun game right there. 2 undefeated teams.
Shout out Sean. I'm rolling with the Vols. Love them. Love Tennessee.
Taking the Vols as well. Although I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Missouri wins that game. And depending on what the spread is, that might be a best bet. Home team plus
Very
points
true.
play.
Very true.
Game 3, the Wolverines at Maryland.
Going with the Wolverines.
Oh, man. I'm going to do the same thing again. If you're going to pick Michigan, I'm going to flip it because I truly do think Michigan's going to lose one of these games to a team they should beat, especially on the road. So I'll take Maryland.
Okay. Wow.
I'll be ecstatic if I'm wrong. Iowa at Rutgers.
Taking Iowa.
A lot of people are telling me Rutgers is real. And Iowa is not guarding anyone. They never have. They never will. So, like, Rutgers at home is juicy, I think, here, even though I really like Iowa.
It is. I know in the last game, too, they were missing their big man, Cliff. I don't know.
Amaruyi.
Yeah, I know he was missing. I don't know if it was COVID or injury, but I'll be on the lookout for that. But I think that Iowa needs – I think that loss against Minnesota might have been a wake-up call, or hopefully a wake-up call. And I think they bounce back and they get a win.
Okay, this is my official hashtag Spite Joe Toussaint play of the week. I'm going to take Rutgers. Joe Toussaint single-handedly cost Iowa a loss. They cost me a daily picks loss by missing 2 free throws. Not one, not a front end. He missed 2 free throws to win the game, and then he came down and went under a screen on Marcus Carr and got a horrible hand. It's elementary stuff. I mean, I would legitimately bench my freshman high school basketball player for making that mistake.
You hate to see it. You really hate to see it.
So we're taking Rutgers to spite Joe Toussaint. And that leaves us with the pick-off of the week this week, Carter. The Texas Longhorns at the Kansas Jayhawks. Maybe the game of the week.
Really good game. I am going to go against what I typically do because you know me, I'm always rolling with Kansas when they're at the Fog. But I think Texas makes a statement this game. I think they get a win at the Fog. I think that Texas front court is going to be a big advantage in this game. If Kansas does go small ball, which I think they will end up doing because I think that Texas's front court can play McCormick off the floor. And I think that Texas gets it done. I think they use their guard play and their front court play. They got a lot of guys who've been there before, played at Kansas before. I think they get it done. I think they pull off the upset on the road.
So, Carter, at the beginning of the season, you and I went through the preseason top 25, and we checked boxes for every team saying either they're overrated, they're underrated, or they're properly rated. And I think damn near every single team we said was overrated, the North Carolinas, the Dukes, the Kentuckys of the world, we're all super overrated. And I think we could look back and listen to that and feel great about the preview that we gave the people. We made one major mistake, Carter. We said Kansas was overrated. Mm-hmm. Kansas was not overrated. Kansas may have been underrated at around the 10th, 11th spot they were coming in preseason polls that I had seen. This, to me, is a team that is probably a top 5 team in the country right now. I love this Kansas Jayhawks team. They proved a lot to me with gutty wins against West Virginia and Texas Tech. Jalen Wilson, Marcus Garrett, Ochai Agbaji. They just got dudes, I believe, in their starting lineup.
Say his name, G.
Oh, who's his name? McCormick?
No, the Scooter Braun.
Oh, my God. I don't want to do it. That is not the dude. They have 4 dudes. They don't have 5 dudes.
Christian Braun,
a.k.a. Scooter Braun, the biggest liability on a good team in college basketball. But that said, I'm taking Kansas. I think McCormick actually was great against the West Virginia front line. He was the best front court player in that game. So if he can do that, I think he's ready for the test against Texas. And more importantly, you just picked 3 straight away teams to win. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark this week down as a win for me.
Oh, Gregory.
Hey, one of us knows what it feels like to win.
Right,
one of us may discover that someday. We'll find out.
Okay. Come on. We're still in this together. Let's not forget that.
And we have one last segment that we said we were going to hit that we didn't, and I want to get to this quickly. So Carter and I collectively made a list in college basketball of championship contenders. We have 10 right now. 10 teams that are the only 10 teams that him and I collectively feel confident in saying we could see a world where this team won a national title. If your team is not on this list, that does not mean we don't think they're a good team. That does not mean we don't think they can make a Final Four run. We just cannot envision them winning a national championship this year. This list will not go up. We will not add teams to this list on an ongoing basis between now and March, but we will cross teams off. For now, there are 10 teams, and those 10 teams are. Can you give me a drum roll, Cart? That wasn't a drum roll. We don't hear that. Like, you got a table or something? Give me something.
Dude, I was just doing it on the
table. Well, we just heard it now. Good Lord. This is falling off the rails. The 10 teams are Gonzaga, Baylor, Villanova, Kansas, Wisconsin, Houston, Tennessee, Illinois, Texas Tech, and Texas. Those are our 10 teams. You may notice right away Iowa is not on there.
They're not.
Michigan State, not on there.
Not on there.
Any comments, any thoughts on the list, Cart?
I'd actually like you to pick your personal favorite on that list. My personal favorite is Houston on that list. I've been saying it in a couple of shows we've had in the past and a couple of discussions that we've had. I think this Houston team is really good, and they got the guard play, and they got the senior, the older guard play as well, I think, to make a run. And I really like this team.
I love that. I like Houston too. You were early on them. You've convinced me I need to take them more seriously and watch them, and I have, and they're very good. I think my personal favorite on this list is Tennessee. I think they follow the Gonzaga formula of just having really 6 guys you could consider starters. I think the best version of this Tennessee team will be one late in the season where Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer are, on the court at the beginning of games and our go-to guys throughout the game. Right now, they still sort of feel like they're finding their place on the roster. But you add that to Fulkerson, Eve Pons, Vescovi. I mean, they just got dudes. So I think Tennessee wins the SEC running away.
Definitely. And they got a lot of, like you said, I think untapped potential. Like their ceiling is very, very high. If it all comes together, that's going to be real scary. They're good right now, but they have the potential to be great.
I think they're the only team outside of Gonzaga, Baylor that has a ceiling in that group with Gonzaga and Baylor. We'll see if they get there.
I love that statement, man. That's the way to end it, man.
Wait, can I end it with one other question for you? Last question. I'm sorry. I made this comparison to someone at Christmas, and I want to know what you think of it. This Illinois team reminds me of the 2013 Michigan team, the Trey Burke Michigan team. And here's why. That Michigan team was not dominant during the regular season. It was very clear that they had the talent of an elite team. They had like two guys you could point to immediately that were returning guys, Burke Hardaway, who were probably better than the other team's best two players. They had freshmen in Stauskas and GR3, kind of like Curbelo and Miller, who were streaky, had good games, some bad games. But they never figured it out in the regular season. They were fourth in the Big Ten. They were a 4 seed in the tournament. And then all of a sudden things clicked and Trey Burke was the baddest dude in the country. And I think that's what you're going to see from Illinois. They've struggled. 3 losses.
I'm not mad at that at all, G. That's a good comparison. I'm not mad at that.
That's my come March. Ayo Dosunmu, baddest dude in the country.
Wow, 2 statements. All right, G. See you, man. Go ahead.
I see you. All right. That's going to wrap it for the Sleepers podcast this week. Stay tuned, though. We have another episode dropping this week, our first guest episode since the relaunch. Cart, you want to tell them who the guest is?
Yes, so we will be having our boys from JUCO Advocate on the show. We recently struck up a relationship with these guys on the Locker Room app, and, they really know their stuff, really know the game of basketball, have an interesting story as well. Really looking forward to speaking with them, asking them some questions and learning kind of more about them. And it's definitely going to be a good episode, so make sure you guys tune in for that one. It's going to be a good one.
And if you don't follow JUCO Advocate already on Twitter, I highly recommend it. Anybody who is anybody on the coaching side of the world of college basketball or in the media side of college basketball, I would say considers these guys a must follow. They're newsbreakers. They help guys at the junior college level get placements on to Division I basketball rosters and beyond. They do a ton of great work in the space of college basketball. So looking forward to that conversation. You can stay tuned. That episode will drop later this week. And we've also got some other planned episodes with guests coming later this month and beyond. We're going to try to do 2 to 3 episodes a month with a guest. One guest, I don't want to give away the name card, but I'm pretty excited for it. Can we say, I think it's fair to say this player has one of the most famous shots in Breslin Center history?
I'll give you that.
We can say that.
All right. It's not too much, though.
Not too much. But hey, it's time to jump on board. And again, subscribe, Sleepers Media on YouTube. We appreciate everybody, and we will talk to you later this week.
Okay. Hey, remember, shoot hoops, not people.